Jim and Lisa back. Thank you again for joining us at our webinar. I think you're going to enjoy it a whole heck of a lot. Before I get in there, I want to make sure, though, everybody understands what Clearday at Home is all about. First of all, if you haven't spent time on the website, please do, cleardayathome.com. Clearday itself is a changing how care is delivered in the long-term care space. The pandemic changed how healthcare, particularly acute care, is delivered. We're all very used to telehealth, Zoom appointments, and there's a lot of entries into the acute care space of telehealth. Clearday, as a long-term care provider, is the first bringing modern, innovative, long-term care to you in your home. We're taking what we've spent years learning in our communities, our very well-respected long-term care residential communities focused on cognitive deficit. We're taking what we've learned in that box and we're bringing it to you in this box to your home to make it more convenient to watch when you feel like it, consume it as often as you'd like, and enjoy it. Again, we are the first one bringing modern, innovative, long-term care ideas to you. And it's important to understand we're the only one doing both caregiving and care receiver work. You'll see if you've gone to our website at Clearday at Home, there's a wonderful program there, which we call the BEST test, which revolves around behavior, engagement, stimulation, and temperament. And I hope you all sign up for that. Once you do, you're also going to get a chance to meet one of our caregiving coaches, and they'll walk you through the BEST test, talk to you a little bit about what's going on with you as a caregiver or your loved one as the care receiver. Then we will put together a personal plan of care for both you, the caregiver, and the care receiver. Nobody else is doing that virtually. And we're going to work with you on a monthly basis to help you make sure that we're maintaining a good baseline for your loved ones. Today, what you're participating in is one of our series of live webinars, which of course will be taped and you can read at your convenience. This one's a great one. It's going to talk about something that's very difficult for a caregiver to get their hands around, which is the idea of showering and hygiene. We're going to introduce to you one of the most experienced people we have, multiple decades of caregiving in a residential care environment, in a home care environment, in a hospital environment. It took us 9 years to recruit this woman. She is fantastic, energetic, and she's going to teach you how to make showering a little less challenging. I'd like to introduce Kristen Hemmons.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Hope everyone is well. Today, let's talk about how to get your loved one to more easily shower or bathe or groom, just in general about personal hygiene and some of the challenges with dementia. We talk about all of the different aspects of dementia throughout the webinars and some of the taped talks that are on our site. So you can reference back to other subjects if you have another question there. But what we need to think about for any type of issue surrounding dementia is how to understand why it's happening. This is the biggest part. So once we can understand why it's happening, we can work much more effectively and with less friction to make that better, make that easier. One of the major questions I have from caregivers all the time is about showering. So anybody out there, I assume you're here because that's a challenge for you. You are definitely not alone in this. It is a challenge. So we will talk first about why it can be a challenge, and then we'll talk about what we should do about making it easier. And like every single thing with dementia, the reason it's a challenge is directly related to the damage that they are having in their brain. And the damage hits all kinds of areas. We usually think about the memory area as the primary issue. And that's the thing that we notice first, usually when somebody is diagnosed with dementia. So they're having trouble remembering names or schedules, keeping things in order, that sort of thing. Once it hits that area, it doesn't really stop. So what happens then is all the other sections of the brain are affected. And it's not like there's a particular order or a particular timeline. Sometimes with a certain couple types of dementia, it can be a little bit more predictable, but in general, when we see a problem, it's because we have damage in a particular area. And I'm gonna say in terms of bathing, that the primary problem area that we're looking at is damage up here in this frontal area. And the reason for that is that's the part of our brain that lets us do things that are like responsible things. So we could initiate a task that was important, even if we didn't want to, for instance, homework or some days going to work when it's really nice outside. It also lets us stop doing something that is, maybe dangerous or risky. It lets us recognize those things. It helps with problem solving, making connections, reasoning, all that kind of stuff. And when we don't have that part functioning right, we lose some of those skills. And that's I mean, basically all there is to it. So what we have to figure out is how to make up for that loss of skill. But one way for you to think about it would be, this is not equating people with dementia with young children, because it's nothing the same. However, in the developmental sense of the brain, obviously we have a lot of motor skills before we have a lot of reasoning and cognitive skills. So when children are young, they need a lot of education, direction, follow-up, because they haven't developed all of these skills yet, right? They're not going to eat their vegetables just because they're good for them. They're not going to come in and stop playing just because it's dinner time. So in a sense, people, when they are developing or losing skills in this area, they are going to actively pursue things they like, and they are going to actively avoid things that they don't like. So there's the answer. So why do people not want to bathe? And the simple answer is because they don't like it. And that's all there is to it. That's not all there is to fixing it, but that's pretty much the main reason. And because they have dementia, and because they probably have some frontal lobe area damage, they are not going to override that dislike just because they smell bad. There are many things also involved. For instance, if you can't keep time and sequence, you can't remember when you last took a shower. And if it's something that you don't want to do and you want to get out of, you'd be like, oh, I just showered. I mean, what are you talking about? And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that. And what we have to figure out as detectives is, what about the bathing don't they like? And generally, so that people with dementia don't remember a lot of specifics. So they probably couldn't analyze the situation, tell you, that ever since they hurt their knee, they've felt a little bit unstable or unsteady in the bathtub, so they're avoiding it. They would just avoid it. And I think of a way for us to picture how that process works is, basically they have a negative association with whatever the activity is, in this case, bathing. And so they remember the negative association, maybe not why it occurred, but they remember the negative. And so because they have dementia, they just are going to avoid that. And I think of it in a sense, so just as I was going to say, as a physical therapist, but actually just as a person who is getting older, when you have, let's say you get a pain in your shoulder, okay? And so when you reach for something, or maybe it's like putting on a coat a certain way in the winter, you get that twinge right there. And a lot of people get that. It's their, some rotator cuff problems there, very common. But if you think about what you do, okay, so it starts and you reach for the coat and you're like, God, ow. Well, maybe that's going to go away. And you don't change your behavior. And then the next day you reach for something up in the cabinet and you're like, ow, yeah, it still hurts. Maybe I'll put some ice on it. And after about 3 days, and that's an arbitrary number, it may depend how many times you use it, but after a couple of days, you will stop doing that motion and you won't realize it because it's subconscious. And So you have a negative association with that arm position and you avoid it. And you don't even have dementia. So if that helps it be a little more clear, it's, they have a negative association with this activity today, bathing. And so they want to stop doing it and they don't really care. So let's talk about what the negative aspects might be. And if you think about taking a shower yourself, I mean, one, it takes a while. You have to do all those steps. Two, you have to do all those steps. And when you have dementia, you might not remember all of the steps. So that seems like an effort. And so they just avoid it. It's an effort, right? But a really big one is temperature. And I don't know if you've noticed, most people with dementia become more cold sensitive. Now, there are a few where they don't get that problem, which is great. But most do. And again, we're talking about brain and the changes in there. Just like, you've got your emotions and your reason, and up here, you've got your memory up down, down in kind of in the inside, you've got hearing and speaking, and you've got areas up here that help you move and then help you feel things. And so when the damage is up there, it can alter the way that you feel things. So, vision, hearing, those kind of things, taste and smell, but definitely touch and temperature. And it can also affect pain perception as well. So it's not that it may be 95 degrees and they actually are perceiving cold if there's that particular area, temperature regulation and temperature sensation is messed up by this disease process. So even though it's not cold and there's no way that they could be cold, they actually are cold because that's what their brain is showing them. So just like your brain is showing you it's 95, and it is, and you're probably right, their brain is showing them that it's 65, and that also is right. And so like everything with dementia, that communication is skewed, and it's not them doing it and it's not them being difficult. They are reacting to a real perception given by real neurons in their brain. And so what we have to think about is how to accommodate for that, because we can and they can't. So we'll start with the cold issue. There are others. But if you feel cold when it's not even cold, just imagine how you feel when you're wet. And they probably don't think like, wow, I could go get a space heater. I could run the shower on high, for 5 minutes before I get in there, so it's all nice and steamy, and I could get a towel warmer. Well, they probably aren't going to think of that. What they're probably going to think of is, I don't like doing that. I'm not going to do it. And so we have to change their perception from a negative aura, if you will, to something more positive. And there are lots of ways to do this. And I'm not going to give you some, exact formula that'll work at your house, but for you to think about and modify and make some changes. Okay, one big point is you're not going to fix this in one day, most likely, because for a while they've not been liking it, I'm assuming, unless it just started yesterday, in which case you're probably lucky. But if it's been going on for a while and you've been struggling and you suddenly make a change, it probably won't have a big impact right away. So the first thing is, I don't want you to get frustrated, but still to keep thinking and trying. So I think about making the change from a negative association to a positive as baby steps, in a sense. So let's say as a physical therapist, and I am approaching a new patient, and this patient probably has dementia and doesn't want to do exercise, because who does, right? And if you have dementia, you don't like it, you just don't have to do it. They don't necessarily like change. They don't necessarily like new people. And so I have to think, how am I going to approach this? Now, what I really need to do is get in there and get all of their hip exercise done, because they just had surgery and this is really important. So should I just go in and start doing all that, or should I try something different? And of course, the answer is try something different. What my goal is to make them like me, and so that they don't have a negative association of me when I come in there. And so That's the same thing with your showering issue. Your goal is you can't fix all that in one day. Maybe, but you have to remove some of the negative. Okay, so just like I wouldn't go in and make somebody do the hardest exercises right off the bat. I wouldn't, just all of a sudden, tell them we're changing this and change everything. I would start with baby steps. So, I might just get them to do a little bit of exercise, not even noticing that it's exercise, like, oh, let me just see how this is, looks here, blah, 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 something like that. So you would maybe not dive in to the whole shebang, not the whole shower, especially if they're really resistant and especially for a long time. So you could shift. Okay, the first big point, not to do everything at once. The second big point is if you are arguing about it and if you are reasoning with them about it, just that has to stop. That has to be the first thing to change, okay? No matter what the subject is, their perception is their perception. You ain't gonna change it, right? So people try and say, but mom, you haven't bathed since Thursday and it's Monday. And she's gonna look at you like you're crazy because her brain tells her, yeah, no, I just took a shower a little while ago. And again, that's her reality. All right. And this is back to our principles of your reality versus their reality. You got to go to theirs. All right. They can't come to yours. So what you're doing by reasoning with them is asking them to come to your reality, and they won't. Maybe every now and then, right, when there is a kind of a more clear moment that can happen, and they could be like, oh my God, you're right. But in general, you got to go over there. And so if you stop arguing or demanding or cajoling or just nicely encouraging, whichever tactic you're using, and just kind of let it go for just a bit and get rid of some of that friction, then maybe don't say, let's go to the shower. Let's say, hey, let's just wash up for dinner. And maybe have it be more than hand washing, and like, oh, give them like a really nice warm washcloth that has something on it that smells good. Okay. Sensory stimulation is a great tool to get people started on things that they don't want to do. So that could be like a first step. Let's just wash up before dinner. Ooh, and both of you could have one. Wash your face with it, like let it soak a little bit, say, oh, that's so nice. I think I'm going to try this again tomorrow. And start a little bit at a time like that. Okay. So take away the friction. Start with something pleasant and not associated with showering, and try and gradually add pieces to that. So, that sounds simple. It's not always, because both you and your person are probably in some habits, and it's hard to change those things. Again, another big principle is it crucial that this happen in this moment? And that can be for anything. If they are the type that's walking up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, we always are trying to stop them from doing that or moving these things around. But does it really matter if they're doing that? Obviously, if they are falling, that's a whole nother story, or going out the door. So let's think, obviously, we can't let somebody never bathe, right? That's not healthy. They're going to get infections. Not to mention just smelling unpleasant, but if they don't do it that day, or if it's only every couple of days, is there a huge outcome that's going to be important or not? And obviously, yes, if they have a doctor's appointment or a procedure, they need to be clean. But can we back off and let it go for this period of when we're trying to shift this to a more positive experience? So try thinking about it a little bit that way. And another big principle is not to ask them ever if they want to take a shower or bath. Many of you figure that out on your own, but some don't, and that is an easy one to change. And it's just a common communication pattern where you're like, hey, are you ready for your shower? Like, no, I'm not ready for my shower. When would I ever be ready for a shower? I'm not going to the shower. So just stop saying the word shower and stop asking. Again, I would start with the slow approach. Okay, so let's do something pleasant together that's more spa-like. All right, to move along a little bit with that same strategy, thinking about the temperature And even if they aren't saying they're cold, you could observe and try and figure out, like, maybe some heat would be a good thing here. So always try, either you, or if you could distract them and let somebody else do it, like get the hot water running and get the room steamy. And I would get a space heater for sure. If they're a bath person, be careful with that, obviously. And I would think about, is there, a heater in there or something where you could put the towels to get them warm ahead of time. And also to always have everything you need ready ahead of time. So you could be in a situation where they can, once you get them there, they'll do it themselves, or it could be kind of like a real hands-on assistance with the bathing. So you want to think about preventive refusal type things. And that is, if you have to stand up and go get something, they could get away, or just the whole thing is called off. So having everything all there, all in one place, all lined up, and having the room warm, you are going to suffer, unfortunately, but it might be better than having a smelly person and an angry person. So if you're getting to the point where they'll try it, another technique people use a lot is not having them get all the way naked. And this could be either a robe or just some towels over them. And a lot of people even get in the shower with the towels on. Whether it's a modesty issue, I don't know how long it's been going on for everybody. When it's a new thing, I mean, you wouldn't want your kid or your spouse showering you, when you're feeling vulnerable anyway. So that part is hard. And so for both warmth and modesty, you can get in with a towel. Just do more laundry. I mean, you probably are anyway. So that's not a stopping point there. And the other thing that the towels can help with is skin can often be hypersensitive, and you might notice this in other ways, like certain textures really bother them, or they get agitated with certain, tactile things going on. And so they can actually have pain from the water. So turning the water down lower, if that's an option, or showering through a towel initially. Once they kind of get acclimated, it's a little bit better. So that's something to try. That's another phenomenon of the sensation being altered. Okay, so you might think it feels great, it's giving you a shoulder massage, and they might actually, like, it might be hurting them. And so trying the towel, and also sometimes those handheld ones, attachments, can be really good. Those are gentle, and you don't have to get under the water all at once, right? You could either sit down or stand up. You can start with, the feet. Sometimes too, it helps if you're in a tub situation. You could do it in a shower, depending on the edge, but having some warm water accumulate in the bottom. So when they step in, their feet are warm. And so the handheld, you could start, with the legs, you can keep the towels on and all of that. So just keep those in mind, that they have sensory perception alterations that are very real to them. And so we're going to try and accommodate for those. All right. So in between them happily getting in the shower with all the towels on and just washing their face, that is the part where it's kind of a gradual addition of trying to add a little bit more each time. Like, could we just, let's not take a shower. Let's just, do a little like sponge bath right here at the sink. Again, everything warm. See if that works. The other thing is this, to help create that more positive association again, is making it, like I said, not about bathing, but just about something nice, something that smells good, something that feels good. Could they, it depends on how big your bathroom is, but even outside the bathroom, could you keep the bathroom warm, but could they be sitting in a comfortable chair with like a warm washcloth? Like, think, what would you like if you, had the opportunity to go to a spa and get treated to a nice bath? What would you like? So could you, do some massage of their shoulders? Everybody likes to have hand and foot rubs, right? Everybody, almost 99.9% of people. Could you add a little bit of that? And that too is also like kind of a nice physical bonding. And some of that gets lost as this relationship has friction in it, right? Because you're trying to do what they need done. You're trying to help, you're trying to take care of them, and then they're all yelling at you and accusing you of things and kind of being nasty. And so I do think a lot of people kind of describe an increased distance that comes from all of that friction. So this could be, a way to have a little more connection. I mean, nobody would turn down, or what else people like to is sometimes like having their hair combed or their head rubbed, just like a little, warm up. And so you could also, I'm trying to think of spa things to add. Instead of getting in the tub, maybe they just sit on the edge and put their feet in the water and say, you're going to do pedicures. All right. You could have a bowl of warm water for their hands, and doing all of these things instead of the shower for a little while, and you're, building up that positive association. Okay, you get the idea of that. If anybody tries something that works, please write, and we can share that with everybody in your new in-home spa treatment. Another of the big principles is let's do it together. So like I said, don't ask them if they want to do it. You can kind of tell them, or you can do it together. And especially if it's not a shower, if it's a spa activity, let's go and do a pedicure today. Look at my toenails, they're a mess, or my back hurts. Let's get some heating hot packs and lie back, and we'll put some lavender towels on our eyes. It's going to be really nice, or whatever it is you think you could get them to do. But always, let's do this. The other thing that kind of helps is, could you help me do this? And I'm not sure what they're going to help you do, but you can think of something, maybe help keep me company while we do our heating pads, or while we do our foot soak. So that is sort of the area of them not liking the sensation. So let's talk a little bit about the area they may not like. They may feel unstable. And this certainly, of course, isn't true for everybody, but everybody with dementia over the progression of the disease develops an increased risk of falling and an increased likelihood of falls. And that, again, if we go back to the reason for everything, we're looking in the brain, and the part of the motor area of the brain, that's the one that makes you do stuff like stand up, sit down, walk. As that has some damage, then the muscles effectively are going to be weaker. So the muscles didn't get damaged out here, but the signals got damaged up here. And so people can have trouble with balance, coordination, reflexes get slower, and strength declines, and also flexibility. So if they are having any of those physical changes related to the disease, and especially on top of any pre-existing ones that may have been there, they could feel insecure getting in the tub or the shower or whatever. And again, modify that to make them safer. You can try a seat in the tub. Some people call it like she threw it out in the hall, and that's certainly a possibility too. But could you, put in some other bars along for them to hold on to, or could you add something that doesn't look like a medical device, like a really cute stool from the spa, like a wooden one or something like that. Or could you try and get them bathing, sitting down, but not in the shower, right? Like how we talked about the gradual progression. Of course, also, if they are looking unsteady, that probably needs to be addressed as well. If they can have physical therapy, if they are a member of our service, obviously there's lots of exercise to do, which people need to do anyway, because they need to try and prevent some of the loss of these things. And I'm going to ask my helper if they could move that question to my screen. I see somebody sent a chat question, but I'm a little bit too far away. Okay. Thank you. So if somebody is having some problems with balance, strength, stability, and you could get a therapy consult You can do home health. Some people like to go to outpatient. I think that stuff is open again. And then, like I said, just participating in more exercise, as much walking as possible. Obviously, that's all determined on their specific level there, but that could be another reason that they're avoiding it, that somehow they are feeling insecure. So, I mean, obviously too, if you had a different shower somewhere in the house that was easier to get in and out of, if they're crawling over the tub wall, a lot of people get kind of an aversion to that over time. So just thinking like around the physical surroundings, as well as could you address the changes, the body changes in terms of try and have a little go around therapy, strength training, balance training, something like that. So that could help there. And so, yes, you can have a single product that does everything. That is definitely one of the recommendations we have for our caregivers in our dementia facilities. And there are those products that are, it's a shampoo, conditioner, and a body wash all in one. That way you're not overwhelming them with, multiple bottles, multiple choices. The other thing too that people find useful is not shampooing at the beginning of this big chore. And let's say you got them in there, they're getting clean. Most people with dementia, again, getting their head wet and getting the water in their eyes is something that creates aversion. So if you can get them all cleaned and save that till the end, a lot of times that's better. Again, none of these are, an absolute law or anything like that. But that is definitely one of the recommendations, is get them comfortable, get them warm. Again, like having the single product, also have the towels ready. You may have gotten some wet in the whole process, but have warm ones ready right when you're finished, so that they don't have that association of being cold after the shower, after getting out, right? All right, so who knows? We probably didn't cover quite everything, but that's sort of the bathing issue. Grooming is very much related, and it's not quite as big of a deal. If somebody's hair is messy, it's not quite the same thing as if they are really, really physically dirty. But I would just go about that exactly the same way. I wouldn't criticize them and tell them that they're a mess. I wouldn't tell them you've been wearing that shirt for 8 days now. One thing you could do is you have to go in there and steal that shirt and replace it with something else that they like, okay? A lot of people will wait until they're asleep and then change it out, or even, depends if you're a night person or what their sleeping schedule is try and wash it and put it back in there. And but giving them an alternative, instead of taking away the thing they want, give them an alternative that they will also accept for that. And the other thing, there's hair, face washing, and especially teeth brushing, that becomes difficult too. And again, if you're thinking about that change in the sensory perception, if their mouth is feeling more sensitive, then that is going to be more uncomfortable. So definitely focusing on like a smaller toothbrush, maybe a softer toothbrush. You may experiment with different toothpaste. There's a technique by a great lady, dementia trainer named Teepa Snow, and she calls it hand under hand. A lot of occupational therapists use this to help people with grooming. So if we think about again, the sensory and motor changes, and coordination being one of them that happen with dementia, it gets hard to do little things, okay? And so buttons and buckles, bra hooks, shoelaces, earrings, necklace, and then also think toothbrushes, right? So if your hand is becoming less coordinated, it's harder to hold on to the toothbrush effectively. And that's a pretty coordinated activity to do a real 2-minute, get all the surfaces job there. I would probably consider, if they don't hate it, one of those sonic ones, because that does at least some of that motion for you, right? And if they're having physical trouble doing it, you can try doing a version of the hand in her hand. And basically, if I had another hand, it would be great. You sort of handshake and then you kind of go underneath like this. It works better if it's another person. But what you effectively have, your thumbs are together and then you can hold the toothbrush for them, but they can still help you, right? So your hands are doing it together, but you're holding it. And you can do hair brushing. Some people are kind of passive. They just would rather you do it for them. But if you can get them their hand with your hand, you know, that's a familiar movement to them and they can participate in that. So again, thinking about like what's unpleasant about brushing their teeth, and probably it feels bad, it takes time, it's an effort, and it's getting harder to do. So what our role is to support those areas of weakness and loss of ability due to the disease. So changing the physical aspects, try a different brush, try a different toothpaste. If it's really bad, you can get those little finger mitts. Now that can be scary if somebody, you know, if some people bite, and if you're not in that kind of situation, you could try that, or you could put it on their finger and let them try it. But think about too, putting your hands together and guiding them, and they can do lots of stuff like that. They can eat if they're having trouble. Sometimes certain foods, eating is a whole nother subject. That's a whole different webinar, so tune into that one. But you can use that same thing. You're holding the spoon, but they're doing it with you. Because they are doing it with you and you're not doing it to them, it's much easier for them to accept and to participate in. Certainly, you know, if you can get them to use any mouthwash just as sanitation, if the brushing is only partial in there. And I know it's probably hard to get people to dentists these days. Wonder if there are dentists that come to the home. That would probably be interesting service. I don't know. I know there's podiatrists, but that's a different subject too. All right, so for any of these issues, wearing the same clothes, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, taking a shower, primary, don't argue with them. Second, don't ask them if they want to do it. And third, spend a lot of effort on figuring out what's making it a challenge and a negative connotation for them and shifting that to the more positive connotation. And that's a twofold process. One is taking away the irritating or bad thing and then adding something pleasant. Another strategy to think about is, could you do something pleasant around it, right? So people can form habits and follow routines given repetition, even with dementia. So if you always follow a shower or a grooming session with something positive, whether that's, you know, a cup of tea or a favorite show, putting on special music, dancing while you do it, making it more of a game, anything positive, like doing it together is also helpful with that. So shifting that connotation. And again, try it all out, be persistent. And I know, you know, everybody knows it doesn't change, and it doesn't, like it might work great one week and then the next week they're back to their old ways, but always analyze that and think, well, what worked in that and how can I pursue that a little bit farther this way? And if it doesn't fix the hygiene 100%, does it also decrease the friction though in your relationship? If you're getting them partially clean and it's fun rather than they're not really getting clean and it's a fight. So just think of baby steps and small victories along the way, and work on that. And certainly let us know how everything is going. I hope I covered all of my points there. Thanks for bringing up the one product shampoo. That's great. And if you guys have specific questions or strategies that you want to talk about, and you're in the member, if you're a member in the site, you know, you can sign up for caregiver consultations. Actually, you can sign up for those if you're not a member. And I believe that's the cleardayatHome.com. And those are sessions where you spend 45 minutes with me or one of my colleagues and work on specific issues, specific problem solving. And it could be anything at all. It could be, I'm stressed out in one event, or it could be, I'm having these incontinence problems, or we're having these eating problems, or, I tried those bathing things and they didn't work. Let's brainstorm something else. So those are great if you guys are having difficulty in a certain area. Okay, thanks everybody for coming, and I will see you on the next session. Okay,